Greetings and welcome to Play or Not to Play. I'm Empty of Empty Gaming. There are more video games out today than is possible to play over the course of an entire life, and more games are being made all the time. From small, one-person indie works to large AAA titles. This series will look back on games made throughout the decades, some famous, some less so. I have been playing video games for more than 3 decades, and I've played hundreds of games. Some I've played to exhaustion, and some I've just played casually. But the first game I ever remember playing was a Snake game, though I can't remember if it was just called Snake, or Snake Bites, or Nibbles, or what have you. Snake games were quite prolific, and it could have been any one of a number of them. I can't even remember what I played it on, to be perfectly honest, as my family owned several computers throughout the late 80s and early 90s. I know that it was on a computer, as I recall sitting at my family's computer desk with my mom teaching me how to play the game. It was, even by the standards of the early 90s, an incredibly simple game. Like most Snake games, the goal was fairly simple: to navigate a map and collect various objects on the map while avoiding the walls, other obstacles, and yourself. Once you got enough of whatever you needed to collect, sometimes it was apples, other times it was just numbers or dots, you progressed to the next map. It sounded pretty simple in theory. As you can see, it's no great challenge, when the map is open, of course. What makes it difficult is that for every object you eat, your snake gets progressively longer, which in turn makes your own snake one of the most difficult obstacles to avoid. One that is with you in every scenario, and one that you make into an obstacle as you attempt to collect whatever is on the map. An alternate version of the snake game, which is probably more popular today, is the two-player or more version, where one player tries to cut off the other player so that their snake has nowhere to go that isn't an obstacle. This was helped in popularity from the light cycles in the movie Tron and was included in the 1982 arcade cabinet version of the game based on the movie. As a child, I never completed the game, but still kept coming back to it again and again, even when it wasn't a new or revolutionary game. Notable games that came out in 1991, when Nibbles, the most likely candidate for the Snake game that I remember, was included on MS-DOS computers, were games like Sonic the Hedgehog, The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, Lemmings, Streets of Rage, and Super Mario World for the North America region. Even the other games we had for our computer included Gunship 2000, Crystal Caves, Commander Keen, and Civilization. All those games are fun, and I put many hours into playing them, but somehow even a simplistic Snake game kept up with even the heavy hitters of Link and Mario to being an enjoyable game to the present day. Slither, a popular Snake game released in 2016, had millions of users downloading it and playing it. The Wall Street Journal in June of 2016 quoted Mr. House, the maker of the game, as saying it had 67 million daily players, and saying that the free-to-play game had made him in the seven figures range from ads that made him less than a penny when a player lost. Though the game no longer experiences the number of players it did when it was first launched, it is hard to deny the appeal that it had with gamers who, at the time, had the likes of Overwatch, Doom 2016, and Dark Souls 3 as options for gaming. You see, the Snake games weren't just about simplistic graphics, basic sound effects, or a lack of plot. At their core, these games offer a challenge to gamers. The reaction time needed, the forethought to plan your snake's movement as you slither through a map trying to collect the next objective without boxing yourself in, all test classic gaming skills, reaction time under pressure. Trying to outwit another player by cutting them off and defeating them also adds an engaging element of competitive spirit to the process. These are engaging elements that stand the test of time. Since the first Snake-like game was released in 1976, called Blockade, it has been imitated, evolved, enjoyed, and spread. Snake games have been made for everything from arcade cabinets, home computers, video game consoles, and phones, both smart and otherwise, and even calculators. You can even play a version of it just by typing in Play Snake in Google, which has several different modes to play and some cute graphics. While they may not be the most memorable games, probably in part to it not being a single entity, and I'm sure many different makers over the years hasn't helped there be a consistent image of a Snake game in most gamers' heads, but still, it's hard to distill an electronic game down to more core parts than to a Snake game. Despite the positives that I consider Snake games to have, there are also some drawbacks. Generally, there's nothing other than gameplay to engage the player. No story to hold your interest, usually no music beyond the simple recognition of a object attained. Maybe a simple background tune that you would probably want to turn off anyway. The graphics tend to be not much to look at either. Typically you have a long snake-like object that you can sometimes change the look of or the color of on a background that is sometimes a different color of the background of another Snake game. These drawbacks can be huge for modern video game players who have numerous other options for their time in the digital world. As for to play or not to play, I'd really suggest giving a Snake game a try, if you haven't already. As both versions of the concept are available for free, you can play a version of the single-player game through Google, and the multiplayer version can be played for free at Slither.io. Older versions are worth looking for if you're interested in a bit of gaming history, or an old game that still presents a challenge with some engaging gameplay. Many of them are quite easy to find a version of, being so old and so simple. Turn on some music or a podcast and play a bit of Snake. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment and let me know what you think. Things that interested you, other old games that you would like to see talked about, things of that nature. I'm hoping to release a video every week talking about games that I played when I was younger. Something of a mix between my own personal history with gaming and a kind of retro review of games that people should maybe or maybe not take a look at. I wanted the first video I ever made to be the first video game I ever played. The things I make in the future won't have any chronological order to them necessarily. That's pretty much it. Have a great day. Bloops. Which in turn makes your own snake one of the most difficult obstacle. But somehow a simplistic snake game kept up with even the heady hit. Despite the positives that I consider snake games to have, there are also some drawbacks.